Was the commission that investigated the 9/11 attacks told that lead hijacker Mohammed Atta had been identified and as al-Qaeda operative more than a year before terrorists struck?
Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer is a Bronze Star recipient who told congressional staff members from the 9/11 Commission that a secret military unit working with the international intelligence apparatus and the Defense Intelligence Agency had identified 2 of the 3 cells involved in the 9/11 attacks, as well as alleged ringleader Mohammed Atta, over a year before the attacks.
Schaefer says the commission never got the whole story.
I'm told confidently by the person who did move the material over that the 9/11 Commission received 2 briefcase-size containers of documents. I can tell you for a fact that would not be 1/20th of the information that Able Danger consisted of during the time we spent.
The 9/11 Commission was told information on Able Danger, but for some reason completely left it out of their report.
They never got the story on Able Danger. I can tell you right now emphatically the 9/11 Commission doesn't have a clue. Now they may say, well, we asked the Defense Department for this information. Well, that's just passing the buck.
So what did Able Danger do with the information?
Schaefer says his unit linked Atta to al-Qaeda leaders, but would not provide any specifics.
It was over a year before the attacks, and the top-level classified spy program made the decision to bring the FBI in to take out the cells they were monitoring.
As to what he did with the information he had,
we attempted to, first off, use it operationally. The lawyer said you can't do that. Therefore, at that point in time, we made the determination as a team that we should move this information to the FBI.
But he says beginning in September 2000, 3 meetings he set up with the FBI were each canceled by military lawyers.
Able Danger was not monitoring random suspects, but specifically the cells involved in the future 9/11 attacks. Able Danger specifically could have arrested and entirely prevented the attacks themselves.
And I'm quoting how I remember saying it. We found, as part of the data run, we found 2 of the 3 cells which conducted the 9/11 attacks to include Atta.
When Able Danger was called to the Senate investigations, the Pentagon attempted to prevent the sharing of the information and asked for secret closed-door hearings without the media present.
Pentagon reportedly does not want the public to hear next week's Senate testimony about the former secret intelligence unit known as Able Danger. 2 congressional sources have told Fox News that the military's pressuring senators to move the hearings behind closed doors. But we're told the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Arlen Specter, wants to keep the hearings open. People who claim they used to work with the Able Danger unit say that unit identified as threats 4 of the September 11th hijackers a full year before the attacks.
I assigned the same core team of analysts that worked the JCAG project. And along with Dr. Eileen Pricer as the analytical lead, 4 of us conducted data mining analysis on the al-Qaeda terrorist network coordinating with SOCOM and other organizations throughout that time. In the months that followed, we were able to collect an immense amount of data for analysis that allowed us to map al-Qaeda as a worldwide threat with a surprisingly significant presence within the United States.
Weldon, a Republican congressman, was the individual who called for the investigation, which he believed was the most important story in our nation related to 9/11, which was the fact that this specific group tried to stop the attacks, but were not allowed to. This was potentially the biggest scandal in our nation's history since Iran-Contra, and very few news outlets seemed to cover this detail. Able Danger collected over 2.5 terabytes of information on the al-Qaeda operations, including the majority of the few cells operating inside the United States, participating in the planning of 9/11. So what happened to the information? It was deleted.
What knowledge, if any, do you have about the allegation of a destruction of documents?
The allegation of destruction of documents is correct. I'm the one who deleted all the documentation that we had gathered at the IDC.
And you deleted the data?
Yes, sir.
What kind of information was deleted?
Everything. everything that we had.
Well, what was the essential substance of it?
We had done internet polls related to a preliminary analysis of Able Danger. And what I mean by that is we were trying to get a worldwide perspective of exactly where this organization function and operate just as a start. And that was in terms of Al-Qaeda.
The majority of the members involved in the military program were ordered to stay silent or face consequences.
For the life of me, I don't understand why, as I understand it, I stand corrected if I'm wrong, but I understand the witnesses we assumed we were going to get to hear from the Defense Department have been pulled. They may be or may not be in the room, but have been instructed that they cannot testify.
They were gagged. Only one member spoke at the Senate investigation. The charts and documents that they had in their unit were conveniently destroyed, and no one person would ever be allowed to verify their claims. And the individual who deleted the information was also asked if he too could verify that what he deleted confirmed that the unit had identified Mohammed Atta, specifically as a terrorist in the United States planning an attack for Al-Qaeda.
Are you in a position to evaluate the credibility of Captain Philpott, Colonel Schaefer, Mr. Westphal, Ms. Preisler, Mr. J.D. Smith, as to their credibility when they say they saw Mohammed Atta on a chart?
Yes, sir. I believe them implicitly from the time that I'd worked with all of them, and everyone you had mentioned was part, and I had contact with during this time.
So how were the members who went public dealt with by their superiors?
A Pennsylvania congressman says there's a smear campaign going on inside the Pentagon, and he wants the defense chief to get to the bottom of it. Republican Congressman Curt Weldon says Pentagon officials are trying to ruin one of their own who's gone public about a top-secret military intel unit. This is the unit called Able Danger that claims to have ID'd the top 9/11 hijacker a full year before the attacks. Catherine Herridge in the Fox Report, live from our Washington newsroom. Catherine.
Yeah, Republican Congressman Curt Weldon is calling for a new probe into what he describes as a witch hunt by defense officials against a member of Able Danger, the secret military intelligence team that claims to have identified lead hijacker Mohammed Atta 1 year before the attacks. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer, who was the first member of Able Danger to go public, has now been told in writing by the Defense Intelligence Agency that he can't speak to members of Congress or their staff without prior approval. And now a security clearance, which allowed him to deal with classified information, has been pulled. The congressman says Schaefer has been gagged, punished for speaking up.
It's obvious to me this is a clear attempt to silence this guy, but now even more than to silence him, to ruin him as a person and a military officer. I've talked to all the Able Danger players, and they all agree this is a witch hunt against Tony. It's wrong, it's un-American, it's unacceptable.
In a recent letter to Secretary Rumsfeld, the congressman writes, "You know as well as I that inside the Beltway there's a time-honored tradition of smearing the accuser rather than answering the charge. That method is now apparently being employed in your department, and while it may be a familiar way of doing business in Washington, it is no less disappointing." The congressman wants the Defense Department's internal watchdog, the Inspector General, to investigate whether Schaefer has been targeted for speaking out, and Weldon says the head of the House Armed Services Committee is backing the request. According to several published reports, the Defense Intelligence Agency has had no comment on the congressman's allegations.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to offer my comments surrounding the use of security clearance system as a method of intimidation and retaliation, and in my case, DI removal of my security clearance based on my protected disclosures of information to the 9/11 Commission and to Congress regarding Operation Able Danger. Many of us take seriously our oath of office to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We demonstrate our commitment by decades of service to this country, trying to conduct operations to ensure our citizens are protected. There are officers within the bureaucracy who abandon their oath of office and instead become focused on a strategy of self-preservation, of obstruction of accountability. A culture now exists in which leaders with this abhorrent set of values are in charge of large portions of the intelligence community.
The staffer on the 9/11 Commission for Jamie Gorelick was Dieter Snell. Dieter Snell was the one who interviewed Scott Philpott in July of '04. It was Dieter Snell, an Annapolis graduate, and a man who will take over the command of one of our destroyers in January. His credibility has never been challenged by anyone in the Pentagon. It was Scott Philpott who was debriefed by Dieter Snell, who buried the story and did not allow the 9/11 commissioners to receive the facts of Able Danger. In fact, in talking to Scott Philpott, he gave me a direct quote from Dieter Snell. Now remember, the Congress, in a bipartisan vote, established the commission to get the facts about 9/11. And the facts obviously involved Al-Qaeda and obviously involved Muhammad Atta. In July of 04, a Navy officer, Annapolis grad, voluntarily goes in to debrief the 9/11 Commission staff, and he mentions that he will swear on his entire life career that he identified Muhammad Atta in January of 2000, and that his team had a chart with Muhammad Atta's name on it and face on it, but also that he saw that chart over and over again. It wasn't a one-time glance. And he also told Dieter Snell that they tried to transfer that information to the FBI. This was Dieter Snell's response, quote, "What do you want us to do with this information? We go to print in 10 days, end quote.